Welcome back, everybody. We're going to do a little more Australia Mountain culinary work here. What we're going to do today is actually cook some sugar. We could take this anywhere from a simple syrup all the way up to caramel, depending on your flavor there. Cooking sugar is yet another technique that you're going to do a lot. There's some right ways and wrong ways to do it, and it's important that you keep them in mind because if you burn your sugar, you got to start over. And if you have other ingredients that you need to do this with, for example, if we're going to do a pot de bain and we need our cooked sugar to go in something and all of a sudden we have to start our sugar over, we may have to start the whole process over. So a few guidelines to go by. I've just got some about 6 ounces of sugar in my pot here. General rule of thumb is about 30% of the weight of the sugar in water. The more water you use, you just have to wait that much longer for the water to evaporate to cook your sugar. So I've got about 6 ounces of sugar, 2 ounces of water just to start with. I got it in a nice clean pot. I've gone through, I've made sure that there's no impurities in here because sugar has a thing that it crystallizes. It's going to be attracted to any dirt spots in the pan, any burnt on food, any impurities is going to make the sugar crystallize faster after you make your syrup or your different stage of your sugar cooking. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. I'm going to put this on no higher than medium. Another thing that people want to do in the kitchen, they're in a hurry, they want to crank it up high. High heat is generally bad in the kitchen. Unless you're searing a steak, you really don't need to go much higher than medium. Or if you're boiling a pot of water to cook pasta, sure, crank it up. But if we're cooking some sugar, we're making a pastry cream, anything like that, we're going to use medium at most. So again, I've got my pot here, nice heavy bottom pot that helps retain the heat and be even. My sugar, my water. I haven't done anything yet to it. What I generally do is I don't touch this. I don't stir this, I don't mess with it, I let it come up slowly. What you can do as it's starting to dissolve, we want to make sure we dissolve that sugar in the water. You can very gently come in here with a heat-resistant spatula and just stir it just a little bit. Since I have such a small amount here, I'm actually going to kick my heat down just a little bit. What the water does, the only thing the water does when we're cooking sugar is it makes it easier to dissolve the sugar. The more water you put in, the longer this process is going to take. The key here is once this starts to boil, I am not going to agitate it. I am not going to stir it anymore at that point. Because stirring, what's going to happen, you're going to kick sugar up on the side of the pot. It's going to be another source of a crystal that the sugar we're trying to cook is going to recrystallize. Just give this a little bit of a stir. Now, when we talk about cooking sugar, it depends on what our application is. Are we going to do something like make a taffy? Are we going to make caramel? Are we just doing a simple syrup to put over a wedding cake to moisten it a little bit? What determines that, that application determines how far we're going to cook this. There's a series of temperatures, which we'll go ahead and we'll put those up on the screen so you can see them for reference. But anywhere from 215 degrees all the way up to 350 degrees is going to totally change the property of this cooked sugar. Again, from a simple syrup all the way to that rich, dark caramel. So I'm going to stop stirring this now because I am using a low heat. I don't really have to worry about that sugar burning on the bottom there. What I can do is I have thermometers. I have a very, very small amount of sugar here. Here's a nice big, heavy, old-fashioned candy thermometer. It's actually marked on here for the different stages of cooking sugar. I've got thread, soft ball, firm ball, hard ball, soft crack, hard crack. Those are the different stages, common stages of cooking sugar. Again, I have a very, very small amount here, so I'm not going to use this. What I am going to use, however, is I've got my instant read, so I can kind of keep an eye on it. A lot of people that do this, all day, every day, they'll actually, with their finger, get in there and ice their fingers, get a little bit of sugar, or take a spoon, grab a little bit of sugar, throw it in the ice water, and by feeling that as it firms up, you can actually tell soft ball to a hard ball by how firm that sugar feels. Now what you can see in here is we've started to boil just a little bit. So again, I'm watching my heat. I'm not putting it real high because I don't want to burn this. What I can do once this starts boiling like this, what I have here is a clean pastry brush, and I have some very cold water. I had some ice in here. The ice is melted because what I want to do is as this starts to boil, it may throw off some little bits of crystal or sugar. So what you can do as this goes, I can take my brush in here and I can actually you can hear it sizzling because this pan's hot. You can actually just come in and wash it. Again, the more I do this, the more water I'm actually putting in the pan, the longer it's going to take to cook. So it's kind of a balancing act. So it's one of these, just do it once in a while. What you can see here is, still have some undissolved sugar in the middle, but it's going to start to dissolve out completely. I'm going to kick my heat down just a little bit because we're not in a big rush here. We want to do it right. Again, clean pastry brush, cold water. So what happens is that water drips down the side of the pan, it catches the sugar particles, and it washes them back into the main body. You can see in the pan here, it's clearing up. So that's as the sugar is completely dissolving and starting to cook. It's not really going to cook much more than a couple hundred degrees until we get that water out of there. What did we say the first stage of cooking sugar was? Thread, 215. Well, water boils at 212 at sea level, a little bit, tiny bit lower here in Phoenix. So basically what we've said is once we get this to a thread stage, there's no water left in this. It is pure sugar. Kick my heat down just a little bit more. Wash my sides again. I'm just, I'm watching it. I'm not doing it unnecessarily. I'm watching it. So what I could do here is I could grab my thermometer, flip it on here. Got the nice long handle here because it's warm. And I could just kind of see where we are. We may not go all the way to caramel today, but we want to kind of see where we are. Again, you don't want to, anytime you measure things, you don't want the, I'm tapping the bottom with my thermometer. That's not what I want to measure. I want to measure the body of what I'm cooking. And you're definitely going to see a color change here as it comes up in temperature. It's cleared out. And if I cook this to a caramel state, which I might do, that's going to be up towards 320 degrees. So right now I'm, 150-ish. Probably a little bit more in reality because I am boiling, so the water's coming out of here. 165. 170. I'm not going to monitor it constantly because we're doing this as a demo just to observe the process and watch it as it comes up in temperature. Again, things we see in the kitchen all the time with students is they go in here and they keep stirring this and they keep stirring this and they keep stirring this. I haven't stirred this with the exception of just putting my thermometer in there since it started boiling. You can see that the bubbles coming up on the side, those can splash, those can throw off those little bit of crystals. So every once in a while I'm going to come in here and just give it a quick little. Now that our sugar's out, if we want, we can bring the temperature up just barely. We're cooking sugar. We're going to make simple syrup. We're going to make something that we can make marzipan with, marshmallow with, toffee, taffy, whatever. It's all about temperature control. The difference between, for example, the last time I made caramels, the difference between a nice soft caramel that you can, pick up and eat and you can actually bite through it is maybe 3, 4, 5 degrees in how far you cook the sugar before you add your other products. You know, it's a very fine line. That's why we like to use digital thermometers instead of the old style candy thermometers. It's very difficult to catch a couple degrees on an analog thermometer like this. You know, the scale's pretty hard to read. Let's go ahead and just check again. Again, have not stirred it. The issue with, again, such a small amount here, I did consider, you know, having a half a pot of sugar, but it just takes that much longer to cook, is it makes it hard to really accurately measure this temperature. So let's see where we are. If you're making a simple syrup, again, for throwing on a wedding cake or into, you know, a mixed drink if you're of age, really all you're looking to do is dissolve the sugar in the water. A simple syrup is more of a 1-to-1 sugar to water by weight. This was only 30% or 1/3 of the sugar weight in water, and that's because I just want to cook that water right back out. The more water I use makes it a little bit easier to start, but you just have to wait for it to cook out. I'm floating right about thread stage right now, something I would be using in a fruit syrup. I'm right about 215. Again, because I've been careful, I don't have any burnt around my edge. I do see a little bit of crystallization over here on the one side, so I'm just going to give it a little more right over there. Hopefully get it to wash down. Yep, definitely in the back here I see some crystallization. Try to turn this a little bit so you can see on camera right on this edge right here. So I'm going to try to get that to wash down. Now, the other thing that we haven't talked about yet is other methods to prevent, you know, crystallization. One common thing is to use acid. So now that this has come up to temperature, I've gotten to 215, I've cooked out the water, I've got just maybe a tablespoon of lemon juice. You can use lemon juice, you can use cream of tartar, there are other chemicals that you can use. I had plenty of lemons here in the kitchen, so I'm just going to go ahead and try to do this without, you know, making a big mess, and put that lemon juice in there. Again, I didn't go in and stir it in, I'm just going to let it naturally, through convection currents, work its way through. I did wait till it came to a boil, till the water came out, because that acid can actually interfere with the sugar dissolving. So, you know, I want to make sure that we dissolve completely. Again, watch my back here, just to make sure. Again, you know, people may think, oh, you know, it's cooking very slowly. I need to crank the heat up. I need to crank the heat up. Well, that's just going to burn the edge, and you're going to have an inconsistent product. This is a natural gas stove. It is 400, 500, 600 degrees, depending on how high I have this set. It is plenty hot to get this up to 230, 240, 300 degrees. I don't need to crank it up. Let's go ahead and see if we can check where we are. Another way you can tell visually how far you are in your sugar is, as you can see on camera here, I have lots of big bubbles in here. As this cooks higher and higher in temperature, those bubbles are actually going to change geometry. They're going to get smaller and smaller. Again, this is not a race. Softball stage is about 235. I'll pull this off to the side just a little bit so I can try to get in here. We're about 223, so we're almost the softball stage. Recenter that so I don't burn one edge of my pan. What you're also going to get as you start going up through softball, firm ball, hard ball, soft crack, up to caramel, you're going to actually start to smell that sugar. I mean, what is caramel? Caramel is called that because of caramelization. That's what's happening. We're actually burning those sugars to a certain extent, but in a controlled fashion. We're not just randomly burning this. All right, again, as we continue to cook here, you've already seen just in a few degrees that the size of the bubbles has started to reduce a little bit. Just one of those fun physics things about cooking. So we can come in here and we can check our temperature again. I do have some crystallization on there, on the end of my thermometer. Should be all right. We are up to 245, so we've gone from soft ball to firm ball. We're actually over 250 right now, so we're up to hard ball stage if we're going to make marshmallow. And we're coming up to hard crack. We're about 265, so about 270 is where we start getting, 270, I'm sorry, is the soft crack stage. And that would be great for taffy. Again, we're just going to let this go. We're going to kind of keep an eye on it. Look at the difference in temperature, difference in the visual, you can kind of see how it's going. We're starting to get just a little bit of color. It's kind of like a golden, you can kind of see it in here, especially around the edges where you get a little bit better lighting. It's kind of a golden color. It looks like maybe a thin apple juice. I'm not going to go in here and start swirling this around. It's just going to crystallize. It's going to burn on the edges, and we're going to have to throw it away. Very quickly starting to get some color change here. I mean, as I'm sitting here watching it, you can see it certainly on the video here. It's color change very quickly. And you can see it's starting on the edges because what happens is the corners of the pan are where a lot of the heat gets trapped. So that's why things tend to burn on the edges. Even in a heavy bottom pan like this, they tend to burn on the edges. I'm going to kick my heat down just a tiny bit to try to even it out. I don't want to sit and kind of move this around and move it this way to try to get it to darken in the center. But I'm starting to come up towards a caramel stage because I'm starting to get color. You expect caramel to have that caramel color. And actually, I can definitely start smelling the sugar now. Let's just see how warm we are. We're over 280, so we're halfway through. We're over 290, 300. Again, that's the issue. A small amount of liquid here. The thermometer's having trouble catching up. We're 317, 390, 320. We have now hit caramel stage, and definitely we can see the color. The bubbles have gotten much, much smaller. I'm starting to see some steam coming off here, so I am going to kick my heat down just a little bit more just to watch it. Again, beautiful color. Bubbles are smaller, great aroma. On camera here, we have folks, looking here. I'm going to kick my heat down considerably because I'm starting to see, steam plus is what I like to call that. It's not smoke, but it's steam plus. And actually, if we were going to put this into something, I would take this immediately off the heat. You have carryover cooking here, so something you want to be aware of. If I was very, very concerned about using this instantly, I'd have all my other ingredients. We'd be putting it in here. So we've cooked some sugar, gone from room temperature up to 320, 330 degrees. We have some caramel here. Maybe we're going to grab some fresh fruit, maybe dip that in there and have a good time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it's a good reference about some of the right ways and wrong ways to cook sugar. We'll see you next time.